Welcome to episode number 5 of the CameraShakePodcast with Nick Kirby and me, Kersten Lutz, the photo and video podcast coming at you straight out of isolation into your eardrums. We'll be talking about talk life in lockdown, what's happening in the world outside, and if we're lucky, we'll hit on photography too. But before we get started, please throw us a solid and subscribe to this podcast. And if listening to our super smooth voices isn't enough for you, you can check us out in glorious Technicolor over on YouTube. Without further ado, let's get into it. In today's episode, we have a really special guest, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Debbie Ram from Debbie Ram Photography. Debbie is an event and portrait photographer specializing in bar and bat mitzvahs, and I'm going to ask you about the difference between the two in just a second there, because I'm really not sure. And also weddings and events. And Debbie, you're based in and around Hertfordshire, is that right?
I am. Hello, guys. Nice to meet you, speak to you on here. Hi, Nick, and hi, Kersten. I'm in Hertfordshire, and that's mainly my work is bat and bar mitzvah work. And you asked me the difference between them both?
Yes, what is the difference?
So a bar mitzvah is when a boy turns 13 years old and he is turning into a man in the Jewish religion, and a girl is usually 12 years old, and that's a bat mitzvah. So over here in this part of the world, they have quite big celebrations for that, and usually almost as big as some weddings, really, and they require photographers to record the events and to capture it for them. That's what I do.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because I know a lot of wedding photographers, but you've really specialized almost like in sort of a specific niche of wedding photography, which is mainly sort of based around the Jewish community. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't what I originally planned. I started off photography, and when I decided to go into a career, I thought I might go into boudoir photography or something exciting like that. Pretty much I've done everything but that. But yeah, I had a few of my Jewish friends asked me to do some work for them, and then could I photograph their kids? And then when they turned 13, my name started getting a bit more popular in the Jewish market. You know, Jewish people, very good at recommendations, so my name sort of went around, and that's kind of the industry I fell into, the genre of photography I fell into, and I love it. Can't complain.
I mean, I've seen your images, and clearly, I mean, the reason why we thought it'd be amazing to have you on our podcast is because I'm completely flabbergasted by your event images. They're so like present and like full of action and life and stuff, and like they really jump out at you, which is for me, as an event photographer, that's really something really special. That's something I'm always trying to achieve. And when I look at your Facebook page and when I look at your images, then it seems like every image that's on there, it just kind of it's got that kick. So I'll be really interested to hear how you do that. I'm really thrilled to speak to you. So how did you get into photography in the first place?
I've always liked it. Growing up as a kid, I came from quite an arty family. My mum used to paint, she still does paint. My dad used to play the piano and was very involved in jazz, and he wrote for jazz magazines as well. So I was kind of born into a creative family and pulled around museums and exhibitions. I hated it as a kid, really, but I started to grow up to love it. Yeah. And always I had an interest in photography. And then I think Instagram started before Zuckerberg took over it. And I was, playing around with my iPhone and, lying on the floor and doing upside down things. And, I thought maybe I'll invest in a camera. I bought myself a cheap Nikon, entry-level Nikon camera. I was walking around Watford. It was called the Harlequin at the time. It's now the Intu Centre. And there was an exhibition going on from a camera club called Watford Camera Club. And I joined the club very soon after seeing these really lovely exhibitions. And it kind of went from there. I kind of pushed myself a bit and wanted to learn and self-taught, and just felt, I started building up a career very, very slowly whilst working, having a full-time job. Then it went to part-time and do a bit more photography, and that's how I did it. So it's kind of a very happy accident.
Yeah. It's funny this because I hear this a lot is that getting into pro photography sort of ends up being a happy accident in a way, and it's it's actually, I think that's amazing. It's one of the few areas of business where that's still true. There's so many different things where you now need to have like whatever qualification and, and everything else. But in photography, it really seems like I seem to meet a lot of photographers, pro photographers who, really are there because they've just, they were just grinding away, and building their knowledge, and they got better and better to the point where, it all of a sudden made sense to set up a business and actually make a living out of that.
So true. And what happened to me, I worked for the Met Police for a while. I think that's when I started really getting into photography. I was working, taking calls and dispatching units, and it was a hobby of mine, just taking these pictures and, as I said, part of this camera club and competing in images, and which now I don't really like the idea that I even did that, but I learned so much, and I was with like-minded people, and just taking my camera out. Friends started seeing I was taking pictures. I was doing portraiture for them. I think someone asked me to do their 40th birthday party and said they'd pay me. I took 50 quid for it. And it's just built from there. And it did make sense to me. I loved being behind the camera, and I loved being creative with the camera, as creative as I can. More than anything, I love being present with my photography. So when I say that, it sort of reflects on what you said, and I'm very flattered that you said that, my work, you're feeling something from it, because I felt something from it when I was taking it. And I know it's a bit cliche, a bit cheesy maybe, but I really do like to be present in my work and interact with the people I'm working with. And I love being an event photographer, and I love doing these bat and bar mitzvahs because I'm partying like crazy. Like, I'm with these kids, they're jumping around like mad to music, they've got DJs, there's food, I'm eating, I'm dancing, and I'm shooting at the same time, and I stop, and they're all quite the same. There's a big format. There's like the same format to a lot of the work that I do. And when speeches go on and people are talking about their friends or their families, I sit and I listen, and I want to feel it, and I try and capture that. And I think we all try and do that, but it's my main thing is to try and put a bit of emotion into it. I'm not techie. I think I've spoken to you about that before. I do like to put a little bit of emotion into my work if I can.
But I think the techiness is always an interesting question, because I think as a photographer, you end up talking a lot about cameras generally, with photographers on all different levels. And of course, you've got some people who are very techie, very kind of technology focused, and they always have to have the latest camera body and the latest lens and all the gizmos and everything else. And then you have the other side of photography, which are people who are really just very, very creative. And you could give them like a pinhole camera and they'll still come out with something amazing, And I think this is the thing that really attracts me to your imagery, is there's just such an energy in there. And really, I don't think for a second, oh, what camera to choose for that? It's just because you're so like taken aback by what's happening in the frame. It just doesn't really seem to come up in my mind. I will ask you about lighting, though. That's the one thing. That's the one thing I want to know.
Okay.
But yeah. So, I mean, just looking at your images, I'm not at all surprised that your business really took off, because I think your images really speak for themselves. So when you started to get a sort of a foothold in particular, in the events photography world. And in particular in the Jewish community, how did that carry on for you? Was that mainly word by mouth, or did you have to advertise a lot, or how did you sort of develop your business from there?
A lot of it was word by mouth and Facebook. I can't lie that my website's down. My website hasn't been functioning for a while, and yes, that's very unprofessional. But I have got a lot of work through posting images, or a few images with permission of parents and or whatever it is I'm doing at the time, onto Facebook with a little bit about what I did the evening before, or what it was all about, and that's how it's come to me. I mean, as I said, the Jewish community are very into recommendation, and there's some groups that I'm on, with other photographers and competitors. We all compete to win business over. It's meeting with the client as well. I'm very much myself. I think my images speak for themselves. You either like my work or you don't, but I do think a lot of it is also to do with how you interact with the family. And this is a big special day for some families. spend a fortune on these events. Some don't, and my price is set. I don't go and see somewhere and go, wow, that's the most amazing house I'm going into, and it's a set price, and I explain. I'm very transparent about my business of what a person will get for the money that they spend. And I like to build up some kind of relationship with the family a bit leading up to it, and obviously while I'm working with them, because I want to be part of their day. I don't want to be putting pressure onto them. I want them to feel relaxed with me, and I have ways of doing that, and connecting with people and having fun, trying to gauge them. Other people that said they'd like to go into photography business, how would they do that? The way I did it was I eventually went part-time. So I ended up working for a company working with vulnerable adults, getting them back into the work industry. So these are people that could have been ill, or people with disabilities, learning difficulties, or all kinds of things, and getting them back into the work environment and supporting them. And this was a part-time job. And at the same time, I was shooting, doing things for myself, and a little bit of paid work as well to bring some extra income in. And to be fair, I was made redundant after working with the company for 3 years, and I loved the job. And I was like, right, I can either look for another job, or I can bite the bullet and really go for it. And it was a big leap of faith. I made a big statement that, I'm going to go for it. And I had a lot of support from friends and family, and some well-established photographers even behind me, who've been following me, said, go for it, we support you, you can do it. And I put a lot of work into it. I mean, I'm a single mum, 2 gorgeous kids, waking up early in the morning and sending them off to school. I'm working from day to night, sorting out editing, different imagery, writing, whatever, to try and promote myself. Again, I think I mentioned on Facebook, and I did have a website that was functioning at the time, and just pushing myself and saving away. So it was a big commitment, and a lot of work went into it to get my name out there. And I'm very lucky it did. I mean, I used to follow photographers that were in the market that I the Jewish market, doing bat and bar mitzvah photography, and they were people that eventually they called me, because my name was obviously gotten out there for them to recognise me, which was nice. So it was really flattering when they called me and said, "Hi Debbie, I'm blah blah blah, and love to meet up with you." And I'm still friendly with these people, and we share, we help each other out, and it's a really lovely industry to be in. It's a party industry. It's a big party industry. It's all it is. And it is niche. Again, I come from, I'm not a religious person at all, but I come from mixed parent. My dad, COV, and my mum's Jewish. We've had Christmas trees and we've had Hanukkah all at the same time. It's fantastic. I get lots of presents. I get to eat the food.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, best of both worlds. So I'm very lucky and honoured to be part of the industry, because it's so much fun, and there's all the people in it, like the DJs, and they're all mixed, and you don't have to be any particular religion. They're all from all different ethnic backgrounds and what have you. People that make cocktails. There's catering companies. There's the DJs, there's makeup artists, there's people that do glitter, and it's just such a fun, wicked industry to be in, and I'm just honoured to be part of it. Very humble, to be part of it.
So you've just described the events industry as a whole, and all the different parts that go into it, like from wedding dresses to catering to photography to flowers and everything that's part of that. How has the whole lockdown coronavirus thing impacted on your business?
Okay, so it has impacted massively. I'm sure everyone in the photography industry and videography, industry knows that there isn't much social distancing in event photography. We're a lot of it, we're all together and we're all faffing about one another. And so sadly, a lot of my clients had to postpone their functions, or some have had to cancel. That said, recently, one of my son's best friends had a bar mitzvah recently. It was the first virtual online bar mitzvah from the synagogue. He's a part of a liberal movement, and I did something quite special. I set up the Zoom, because it was on Zoom, for us all to see. And I put flowers around my Mac, and rather than just take screenshots, I actually shot my kids watching it. And I also went over to the house and social distanced a couple of photos together with the family, which was really interesting because they had family in their garden with them that was social distancing from them. So it was really interesting to put it all together. I did that as a present, as a gift to them. But yeah, it's massively affected the industry big time. So yeah, it's been tough, and I'm hoping soon, at some point, we'll all be together again behind our cameras and with posing people. And the hard part of that was I don't know the technical term, and this might be a bit graphic, but I call myself when I fluff people. So when you're fluffing people and you're I'm used to going up to people and straightening ties and can I move your hair a bit, and it's really hard to start to direct that part as well. Can you do certain things with your with your hair and what have you? And, so that bit was tough.
Yeah, that's difficult because I do that all the time with headshots, especially with the guys, like you straighten the tie, like you just straighten out the jacket.
Yeah.
And it's, you can't do it, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I'm hoping that headshots might be the first thing in the corporate photography world that may be coming back, because you can do kind of one-on-one headshots fairly safely, I think.
Yeah.
And also, it's like I mentioned this in the last episode, but I think everybody's hair is now so out of whack, that or they're in for new headshots. That's what I'm hoping for.
Everyone looking at Einstein for this.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you been up to during lockdown? Now that you haven't been able to go out and shoot clients, what have you been up to? Okay,
so we've spoken before about this actually, and I've pretty much done everything but photography. So. I am behind my camera now and again for small little things, and I'm sort of thinking up ideas for shoots. But I've been in the garden. I've learnt the ukulele. I've been.
Oh wow!
I've become like the Delia Smith. All of a sudden, I have, weeding and I mean, my garden looks fantastic out there now. I'm really proud of myself. Tidying up, sorting out my garage, watching lots of Netflix, doing loads of stuff with the kids' homework. I have been busy and really nice thing. A really good friend of mine, a guy called Abul Shah from Gracious Photography. I was watching a podcast that he'd actually done, and he said, this is a very special time. This is the time you're not going to get back, and this is the time to do stuff you want to do. And it sort of resonated with me. It stayed with me. And all right, so there are things that I haven't done, like having put my website back online, and I haven't done massive photography projects, but I have been doing a lot of things I wouldn't normally have the time to do, and enjoy my kids as well.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that, because actually I felt exactly the same. When the lockdown first came into place, like I don't even know how many weeks ago. 9? What are we now? 9 weeks?
I don't know.
I've lost count. I don't even know what day it is today. But so when it first came out, we were obviously really quite rattled by the whole thing, and we decided to do a family vlog type of a thing. So, and I thought, okay, well, why don't I set up kind of video interviews with each one of my kids and my wife and everything. And, I interview them at the beginning, at the very start of lockdown, and record how they feel and how it affects them and everything. And then, we'll do sort of, continuous vlogging throughout the whole thing. And then we see how the whole thing develops and where we are at the end of it, sort of thing. But I have to say, even just shooting the interviews at the beginning, that was so emotional that when I was editing the first bit, I thought, I just can't do this. I can't, it's like too hard. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't do it in the end, because when I look back at that first week now, everybody was so down and depressed and worried, panicked,
Yeah.
And now, and of course, everybody was thinking about all the things that we wouldn't be able to do, all the things that we'd be losing, and all the things that, we had to stop doing, and the people we had to stop seeing. And over the weeks, we've sort of found ways of working around that. We found Zoom, we found podcasting, and we've connected with, I think for us as a family, we've connected with, especially with our family abroad, because we're quite an international family. Where we're family in Germany and in Canada. My wife's Canadian, and I have family in Canada, and we're connecting with people actually a lot more than we would have ordinarily done, you know. And so it's sort of, and we're getting a dog. You know,
you said that's so brilliant. I've got my dog's here on my right now, scratching.
I'll have like when we have the puppy will become absolute part of the podcast, no doubt. But you know, it's sort of we've just kind of readjusted our focus, and it hasn't turned into that kind of festive negativity that we thought in the beginning that it would turn into. And actually, it's like you said, we've been able to kind of refocus and do a lot of the things, or pay more attention to a lot of the things that we had sort of neglected. And you mentioned the garden; it's the same thing. I mean, I'm now in an eternal battle with my lawn, But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's really been sort of a time for reflection. And I'm just, I'm actually quite positive. I've really realized that, if you throw a whole lot of stuff at the human race, in a sense, we're kind of able to deal with all that and turn it around and turn it into something positive.
Yeah.
And I think, Nick and me have been talking about starting a podcast for, I don't know how long, years probably, and this was the time to do it, and that's why we're all here. So, it's been excellent, right? So
wonderful. It's lovely what you're saying. It's so true. It did start off negative and worrying, and it's all become a new normal. And another thing that's resonated with me is something a friend of mine, Pete Tobias, said that we should be. It's not social distancing; it should be called social connecting. Yeah. Physically distancing. We're physically distancing, but we're actually connecting more than we've ever connected.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly how I feel. I don't feel socially distant at all. Like, I feel very connected with people at a distance, So we're physically distant, but not disconnected at all. So here's the thing. So you were talking about making a transition from, being in employment and having a job, and then transitioning into becoming a full-time, pro photographer. And I've recently spoken to a number of people who are having these exact thoughts now. And it's because of the whole lockdown and everything that they're starting to think, well, maybe the job that I was in before this all happened wasn't really giving me that satisfaction that I was looking for in my life. And now, maybe photography might actually be the thing that I love doing and I want to get into. So how would you describe freelancing to them? What's the deal with that? For somebody who's always been employed and is now considering freelancing, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so my first bit of advice would be to only jump the gun if you know you're going to get an income from it immediately. That's why I built it up part-time. I part-time worked and built up that way. I thought that was very important. So I knew that I would at least have my mortgage covered and the important bills covered if it was part-time and if I had gone full-time, because I was getting that much money in. Freelancing for me, best thing ever. I win Employee of the Month every month. I'm my best boss, and I'll tell you something. I've worked harder and madder hours, being freelance than I would employed. I think that's a good thing. That could be a good thing and a bad thing. I've chosen what work I put in. I put a lot of work into growing my business, and to make a living off of it. And I started off the first year. I didn't make very much money the first year, but like I said, it was enough to cover my basics. And then I doubled that, and then I doubled again the third year. And and I was very lucky to be in the industry that I'm in, because I think you need to really think it through. You can't just say, I'm going to become a photographer and reap the benefits straight away. You need to put a lot of work and not slog in for it. So being a freelancer for me, I don't have a boss. I am my boss, but I'm a tough boss. I like the fact that I'm not being micromanaged by someone else, or that I have to explain anything to anyone else. I'm for getting good images and making my clients happy, and that's all I want at the end of the day, is for my clients to like what I've done, to say, they ring me up or they write me a message to say they're really thrilled with an album, or how the night was before, or how it all went, or their images obviously most important. And that's what feeds me. That's just as good as the money, really. Easy, but I mean it.
What was your favorite photo shoot ever?
Oh gosh, I really couldn't pinpoint it, but I think when you get like a really good connection with the family, and I'm really not low when I say I party. I will be on the dance floor with my cameras by my sides, flinging away, and pick one up because I see something going on, and I don't want to stop people. I don't really like to stop people, because then it comes a bit contrived, the work. I really want to capture them in the moment doing it. So if you're dancing with them and having fun, then you get great images from them. But my best shoot, I don't know, quite a lot of them. I've really enjoyed some of them. Some have been really special. When you get a kid that's really, thankful as well, that, the families really spend, it's not just about money, but they put so much into these functions. And when you see a kid that's really like amazed by it all and thankful for it, that's lovely. It's so nice to see. I think when you're a 13-year-old kid and you're hormonal, they don't realise what's going on around them. But when you get some of the kids that really do know, one kid came up to me. Funny enough, I was reading it on a memory on my Facebook, and I put pictures of previews of the night before and what the kid had said. And the kid said something along the lines of, "Wow, I can't believe all this is for me, and it's amazing. I'm totally stoked." And it's so nice when a kid tunes into it. It makes it lovely for me. I think that's really nice.
I tell you what fascinates me in a sense is the fact that I got married not too long ago, about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago. My wife's nowhere. No, not around. So I can't remember. Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Better remember.
Yeah. When is our wedding anniversary? Anyway, so I'm terrible with dates, by the way. I'll forget every year. But the funny thing about wedding photos is that they really mean so much. And we have a selection of wedding photos, like a stack of prints in a little wooden box on our windowsill right by the couch in the living room. And every so often, I don't know, maybe every couple of weeks or something, we'll take the box out and we'll have a look. And it just gets you back into that feeling, of that day.
Yeah.
And it's really it's really special. And I would have never before, because it's the first time I've been married. I would have never really, I don't think I ever really understood really how much these images mean, to someone. And that's definitely changed my approach to events and to weddings. I don't do many weddings, but I do a few here and there. But I definitely understand the meaning of it in a way, and the importance of those images a lot more since I've sort of experienced that myself on the other side, in front of the lens, as it were. So that's it's really interesting. Do you print, or is it?
For my clients, I make it into albums, and just bring it back to what you said. That's such an important sales tool as well, because you're looking back on these memories, and to have something tangible in your hand is so special. And they're heirlooms, right? Like the photos we have of parents or grandparents are all the old posed black and white pictures, and that's all you have left. So, but it's true, that's what I say to my clients. Yes, I know you like my reportage and the documentative stuff and the action images, but we do have to get those posed images, because they're the images that stay, they stick, right? The heirloom photos. But it's lovely that you're looking through them. I love to shoot weddings more than, I love it. I don't push that enough. I don't push doing it enough. But there's so much energy and emotion that are in weddings. I love it. It's nice that you look into your images regularly. It's special, right?
Yeah. So talking about the energy in your photo. So this is the one thing I really want to know is how do you light your wedding photos, especially the kind of the sort of action shots, because the thing that really strikes me about them is really the kind of lighting on them. They look, really present and they really pop out. Do you use speed lights or how do you?
I use speed lights. So I usually got four around, off camera flash. I use Yungyo. I don't spend fortune in flash. A lot of times it gets smashed by kids by accident. So I don't want to, spend an absolute fortune. And using them with triggers. I backlight a lot as well. There's always like this Debbie round photography shot where, the kids are receiving speeches. So they'll be sat amongst their friends and I like to put them on a chair and then backlight them and make them look angelic for that one moment. So that's like a standard shot. So yeah, I do use speed lights and I like to watch where the DJ's lights are going as well. And if I can sort of get into a certain area and maybe utilize a bit on that as well. But yeah, I think it's important to get it lit right as well. I mean, all my pictures come out perfectly, and I used to shoot through the lens, like TFL setting, and I think it was a game changer for me when I actually started to learn to work with manual flash, and my work completely changed. I think it really, you say being present again, because I was present. I think that shows in everyone's photography. You can tell when someone's making a bit of there and making a bit of effort with the work that they're doing.
Yeah. The backlighting thing is a really interesting technique. So we can just maybe explain a little bit how that works. So backlighting essentially means that you've got a speed light set up behind the subject, and you're literally aiming it at the back of somebody's head, let's say. Yeah. Yeah. And what happens is you get that kind of this sort of aura of light around. This, I don't know how to explain it. You get this sort of this rim lighting all the way around. And then do you also light them from the front, or how do you do it?
I do. I didn't at the beginning, but now I do because it was like potluck to get them lit really well from the front. But now, I'll have a flash either on my camera or also off camera, but facing them from a bit further and dial it down a bit just so I get feel flash. And I want them to stand out amongst everyone else. So it just gives them the standing out that you want. It's about that person and about them, their reactions to a speech or.
And it's so effective. It's so effective. This is what I love about your images. It's just like the focus is immediately drawn to the person that you're trying to, and that's amongst all the other people that are in the frame as well. And it's a really difficult thing to do, I think, and that's one of the reasons why I love your images so much. Is there's no doubt who the main character is in that shot, and it's just done so tastefully, and it looks great for an event photo like that. So it's awesome. So how do you approach an event shoot like this? Do you scout that out beforehand, or what's your sort of general approach to this?
Okay, so sometimes I scout out and do a recce if it's a really big function, if it's a wedding or particularly if it's a big function, because I want to find out if I need another photographer and how many rooms are being used. But usually I don't do that anymore. I'm lucky enough to have done enough of them now to know there's a format to a function. So working with various DJs that sort of they MC the event, so to speak. I've learned that there is like a certain way. So most of them have got some kind of format to them, and that's good. And obviously engaging with the client first to find out if there are going to be any surprises coming up, anything I should know about, anything in particular you want me to capture, people you want me to capture. I like people to write, give me a list of people that they definitely want to have photos of like pose photography, or maybe people they don't want in their work. That happens too with families. Yeah, I like to be prepared because I want to get it right for them. I get like nice nerves, like butterflies before each shoot, and I think that's a good thing because it shows that I still want to get it right and passionate about what I do. I'm learning stuff all the time. Yeah.
How do you choose the locations for your shoot?
Oh, okay. So if it's a pre-shoot, some families want to have a pre-shoot before. I'll scout out a nice area. Sometimes they want it in the back of their houses, but sometimes nice parks or flower gardens. I've found some really nice places to take clients before for a shoot, or for head shoots, or for just family shoots. Then I'll ask them; they might want to go somewhere. But usually, I'll go into a nice park or woody area or something, depending on the season and what's going on. Yeah, that kind of work. But for weddings and the mitzvahs, they've obviously chosen the shop or where they want. Are you talking about when I'm actually at the function itself?
Yeah, both. I mean, when you're at the function, obviously, I'm guessing you sort of scout out the location there.
Yes,
and then
I do. I get there nice and early. I get there early, really super early, so that I'm all prepared. So yeah, I will recce the building first, but I won't go there days before usually. Yeah.
Great. So one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, and this is really one of the things that sort of touched me personally, is the fact that you're really a comeback person, because you've gone through some really difficult times in your life. And do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I do. Sadly, a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it was obviously horrific. It took me to a place mentally which was very hard to come out of, but I managed to. So I've had to face quite a lot. I've had chemotherapy, radiotherapy. I've had massive surgery, a surgery called the Whipple surgery, which is one of the biggest surgeries, abdominal surgeries you can have. It has been tough, but I've found positivity through it in some mad way. I don't ignore my illness, but I carry on through it, and I still want to be me, and I still shoot through it, and some of my clients know about it, and I don't think I've changed as a person to how I was before when I'm working, and I think that's really important, and that's been important for me. So initially, when I got my diagnosis, building up the business to how I had, that was one of the hardest things to deal with. The fact that I might lose my business, or that I have to give up a lot of my business, and luckily I've had the strongest backbone of friends and family for support, and without them, I wouldn't have gotten through it. But I'm reasonably healthy, and just carrying on and shooting through it. So yeah.
So you had to stop working for some time, and then
I did. I was on one of the chemotherapies I was on, knocked me for 6, and I wouldn't have been able to work through it. But I didn't want to, it's so tough to ring up my client and talk them through it and tell them what had happened. But luckily, I mentioned him earlier on, my friend Abel from Gracious Photography, he stepped in and he took over a lot of my work for me, which has been a real saviour for me, because then I've managed to keep my business going that way. And like I said, after that particular chemo, I could carry on working through it, and it keeps me going. Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear. And now it seems like you're kind of getting back into it.
Yeah, I really am. I've always been quite a creative person, but actually lockdown has really brought out a lot more creativity in me, like painting as well, and sticking and creating, making things. And yeah, it's just not as much photography as I imagined I would have done. Yeah, so I need to get that out. I need to get my camera out a bit more often. I'm constantly thinking up ideas. I'm seeing dresses and flowers, and I'm like, oh, my kids would look great wearing that, with holding this, and and I'm looking at photography all day long. It's like I'm on Instagram. I'm on these photography pages. I'm looking at stuff all the time, totally inspired, and it's all in here. I just got to get it out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we talked a lot about photography projects, during lockdown. So every week we set ourselves a little challenge. It's usually a photo challenge, or the latest challenge is a video challenge. It seems to be taking a little bit longer, but I think by next week we're going to be ready. Um, it's it's a great way to keep creative. Is I think when you challenge yourself a little bit, it's not too dissimilar to the sort of set subject kind of competitions that you'll see in camera clubs up and down the country. But it's just a thing between Nick and me, and we can of course choose the subject matter. And also, what I find interesting is that we sort of switch back and forth between photographs and video, because Nick is really a videographer who dabbles in photography, if you want, and I'm more of a photographer who dabbles in videography. So the challenge is a different one, and that's it just helps us both to develop our skills, in areas that maybe we're not necessarily 100% confident in. And it's just fun to do. So, in fact, talking about camera clubs, I know you've been sort of a long time member of a camera club locally.
Yeah.
What would you advise sort of new photographers to join a local camera club, and what are the sort of advantages of doing that, do you think?
I mean, definitely. Firstly, you're going to meet people who are like-minded, that like photography from all different levels. And the advantages are is you get to chat with them and you learn a lot about photography. You get to learn about competitive photography as well, which is a completely different ballgame to professional work, where event photography. But I think you learn some real fundamental, important keys to photography when going to a camera club. And so, yeah, I would recommend it to people who want to meet like-minded people, and it's good fun. And the camera club I belong to is particularly really social, great. I mean, they say that they're a drinking club with a photography problem. That's the cool thing about them. I've met and gained some wonderful friends out of it. Sadly, I don't go very often at all now. I've sort of different sort of genre completely of photography and the way I feel about photography now. But there are some advantages to going to a camera club for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, to be honest, when my wife and I first moved together, and I moved to this area. I was new to this area and I didn't really know anybody, and I hadn't really considered camera clubs at all, to be honest. And my wife, the one day, just said to me, I think you should join a camera club. You could hang out with other camera nerds who are into the same thing. And I'm like, hey, that makes sense. Let's try that. And it was really fun. Yeah. And I mean, just like, I don't go every week. It's, the pub part after the actual club meeting is the really fun part. But yeah, as you say, I've learned a lot from speaking to other photographers, and I've made a lot of really, really good friends. What I found really inspiring is the fact that you get to meet people who have a lot of experience in areas of photography that you may not necessarily be that knowledgeable of. Like for me, for instance, I always say this. I'm not much of a landscape photographer, never been. But I know at the club there are lots of guys and girls who are really, really very skilled at this particular type of photography. And so I take that as an opportunity, for instance, just over a couple of drinks, you can have a really good chat about how they do what they do and how they create these amazing images, and so, yeah, I think from a learning perspective, it's a great way to actually get to meet other photographers and learn from them. We all learn in different ways. YouTube's a great way to learn, obviously.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. You learn from people, but you've also got YouTube and you've got trial and error yourself. I mean, a lot of stuff that I've learned is from buggering up, at some point, and or just playing with your camera and being brave enough to do it and bold enough to do it and not be scared, to be a bit fearless. Maybe not necessarily doing that whilst being paid, but when you're at home or you do something with friends, is to experiment. Yeah.
There's also a whole lot of difference of photography associations, and I know we spoke about the SWPP in the past, That's the Society for Wedding and Portrait Photographers here in the UK.
Yeah.
And I know you at least you used to be a member, or are you still a member?
Yeah, no, I was a member of them. I used to go to their exhibitions, and they have a really lovely magazine that they send to you every month, and it's a good online community. You can learn a lot from people, and they have it's not just wedding and portraiture. They will also have landscape, and they also have event and corporate and different kind of genres of photography. Yeah, they're really good association to be part of. I think the society. I was also part of the Royal Photographic Society. So with me, when I first started shooting, I wanted something to aspire to, and I said, right, in the next 5 years, I want to, submit a panel for the Royal Photographic Society, and I did that within I think a year, and I got my licentiate with them, and it was just all a bit, very, very proud of myself at the time, and it's just nice to have initials at the end of your name or something. If you go into a client, it shows that you're not just someone who's picked up a camera and starting to shoot. It shows that you've pushed yourself a bit as well. I think it's very good, for clients maybe just to know that you're not just, someone who's come off the street.
It's like a seal of quality, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Just to have something, I think is quite nice that you're taking it seriously as well. It's not essential. Something I wanted to do, and and it's something I've actually thought about projects maybe going the next level, but it's all for myself. It's not for anything else. But
sure.
I'm not into having my photography judged really by anyone anymore, except for my clients. And my stuff I do, my personal stuff, is as long as I like it at the end of the day, as long as we're enjoying it and we're having fun, it's the most important part. I remember speaking to you guys because I know sometimes we get together for a chat, and I like listening to both of you because I was looking for inspiration, and we were talking with other photographers as well. I've got all these ideas up in my head, and I'm just so, I don't know, my days are like filled with, I don't even know what. We're in quarantine, but I'm busy all day long doing something. And I guess I got young kids as well. I could do with like a kick up the butt to get my camera out and to start shooting. So maybe a bit of inspiration, really. I know that you guys are very good at having an idea and that you actually shoot something through to fruition. And I really admire you guys for that. A bit jealous maybe because it's just me in the house with my kids and they're great subjects to photograph. And we're walking out and about taking photos now and again. But I do want some inspiration to get some proper studio lighting out. I've got some great lighting, some Elinchrom lighting.
Nice.
So I could do with an idea to shoot more than just a headshot, just to do something nice with that.
Yeah. When what I find is there's a number of sort of things that go through my head because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to things, and therefore I have a tendency to procrastinate. Whatever the word is that a word? Procrastinate. Procrastinate. That's a difficult word. But also I've learned to live with the idea of done is better than perfect. And I had to really learn to live with that. And so what I tend to do is I either have a definitive concept in my head, and I'm going to think, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to plan it through, and then I execute. Or I'm going to say, right, now's the time for me to do something. I've got a couple of hours, I don't know, everybody else is playing, I don't know, some kind of online game or something, whatever. They have no idea what they're doing. What are they doing? And then, I get, and I set stuff up, and then it starts rolling from there. I mean, one of the things I've learned from being a musician when it comes to creativity, this is one of the things I've learned over time, is that you find yourself in a position where you have to switch the creativity on. And it's a little bit, I see it like, you stick the key into the keyhole and then you open that door and the ideas start flowing. But if you never put the key in the keyhole and you keep that door shut, then it doesn't seem to be happening. And so as a studio musician, what I've learned is, I've got to be in the studio, I don't know, on a Thursday at 10 o'clock. and we've got 2 hours, and things have to happen in those 2 hours. I don't really then have the luxury to kind of sit around and say like, oh, I can't really think of anything now. I'm gonna come up with something tomorrow. It just has to happen, and you kind of learn to unlock that door.
Right.
At that point. And sometimes that helps me with photography too. I set the lights up. It's the same thing. You've got some nice lighting and some modifiers and la la la. And I start setting stuff up, and just the process of doing that will then, it starts to unopen that door.
Yeah.
And then more times than not, I actually just put myself in the picture then, and this is where a lot of the recent photographs have come from, where I'm literally, the photographer and the model at the same time. It's just because there's nobody else around, or everybody's so tired of being asked to pose, which also happens. And then it just kind of grows from there. So, and of course, the other thing that I found really useful is to have these little competitions with Nick, because there's a set deadline to it. And although we've been very lax on the latest one, I have to say, but I really found out that's really a tricky one. I have to say that's the hardest one so far. But it's the kind of to get started is that, for me, that very often sort of unlocks that door, and then that lets the creativity flow. So it's one of the things I'm going to be doing actually probably tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow or the day after. I know I have a little bit of time. I'll have a few hours where people are off doing other things, and that's when I'm gonna block off all the windows in my studio space, which is the thing we talked about earlier. I don't have any blinds at the moment installed, and I have a lot of window space there, and I need to kind of block that off so I can control the light better. And I'll do that, and then I will test it by doing some kind of shoot. And I really don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know when I'm going to do it, and I kind of know how I'm going to do it. I just don't know what I'm going to end up with. Okay. And it might just be sort of a spur of the moment thing. Maybe I'll have a mask sitting around, or some coat, or I don't know, some object. I'll find something, but I'll come up with something then, and I'll make it look as good as I can at that moment. And that'll be one thing done.
That's cool. That's so cool. Yeah, that's probably what I need to do, is actually get the equipment out. I have been doing dabbling, as I've been going for walks. As I said before, I take my cameras with me, and I went out into my garden. I bought some hipster crystal ring recently, which you put over your camera and shoot through it. And I was farting about my garden doing that. And but I maybe I will. Maybe I'll turn the camera inwards and shoot me. I think the last time I did that was a year after my diagnosis. So it was my last proper project that I did.
Right.
So maybe I need to do that. But I don't know what. I'll just have to take it out and, see what happens.
Yeah, and this is often that's the thing. As much as I love pre-planning things, and with some of the photographs that I've made, recently, there was a lot of pre-planning involved, and that was the kind of thing, where I had the exact idea in my head. I kind of knew what the photo was going to be like before I shot it, and then the actual shot itself, or the actual shoot itself, I should say, it was pretty easy and very quick because everything had been pre-arranged and pre-planned. But there's been a lot of occasions where I just kind of felt like, I'm just going to take the camera out, or I'm just going to try something. I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to set it up, and then see what happens. And that's, to be honest, 9 times out of 10, that turns into a pretty cool photograph. Good example is I got a new coat for Christmas, I remember, and it's like a really fluffy coat, like one of these Parker type deals, with the fur hood and everything, and and I thought, cool, there's a photograph in that, So got the aviator glasses out, and picked up a cool looking guitar, and off I went, and that was it.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah. Well, I don't think I look so cool with the ukulele in my hand, but.
There you go. There's an idea in that. Absolutely. For sure. What can you do with a ukulele? But yeah, I mean, things like that can look extremely cool, if they're lit slightly differently, or there's always things that you can do to kind of make those things look cool. Sometimes you can take something that's actually quite a mundane subject and just make that look cool by lighting it in an interesting way. And sometimes you can take something that's actually really interesting and just make it look totally normal. Like we did some floating images the other day, and really the idea was really to just take something it's supposed to look like totally normal. Hey, you're hoovering the floor, but you might just be floating in the air whilst you're doing it. So it's ultimately it's just some dude hoovering the floor. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. It's just not the way that you would expect it.
I've seen the image; it's fantastic. It really is.
Cheers. But yeah, I mean, that's so there's a difference. There's sort of different approaches that always lead to something in the end. That's how.
All right, well, watch your space, because maybe I think I said that to you last time, and but I do feel something, so maybe I'll get my camera out later.
Yeah. And these are actually exactly the type of things that we talk about in our weekly photo and video chat on Zoom every Tuesday at 2:00. It's exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. Creative ideas, things to do whilst you're at home. Exploring new areas of photography, for example, and all of those kind of photo and video related things. One of the things that I think could be really interesting for photographers these days is actually making that move into video, because we all own cameras that are amazingly awesome video cameras at the same time. And I think especially when I speak to a lot of photographer friends, stills photographer friends, I should say, they really don't consider the video capabilities all that much. And I think video can give you really a completely new dimension to explore, if you're really used to predominantly shooting stills. And I say that because I, as a child actually, or as a teenager, started out in video. So that's my way into photography, was actually via video. And the thing that fascinates me about video is the story component in it. Of course, we always tell a story with a stills photograph. But with video, you can tell a story over time. And that's an additional consideration that you don't really necessarily have in stills photography. And it's a really interesting dimension, because, a lot of the photography rules are the same. You're still thinking about the composition, you're thinking about the lighting, all of that is the same. But it's what you show in the video, the story that you tell, and the way that you edit. That's sort of an extra dimension that I find really, really fascinating. And I'm married to somebody who is a trained scriptwriter, so that comes in handy. But so there's a way to kind of expand your creativity, and it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago, where stills cameras and video cameras were two completely separate things, and you either had to spend a lot of money on one or on the other. These days, we all have these amazingly capable pieces of technology already. Anybody who's got a fairly modern digital DSLR or mirrorless camera has a really extremely capable video camera in their hands already. In fact, just with the camera, the Nikon that I'm shooting on right now, if I had had that when I was 14, that would have been incredible, because the quality that I get out of a Nikon DSLR, that's really made for stills photography, but also has decent video quality. That quality would have beaten anything that was available in professional broadcast television back in those days. So we've got the tool. Maybe this might just be the time to learn how to use it.
I have never ever even switched on that function before on my camera, not even to look at. And I'm telling you now, Kirsten and Nick, that I will this week. I'll explore that avenue, even if it just means a second's footage or something. But I've always wanted to do it. I mean, cinematography, videography fascinates me so much, and I work with a lot of videographers, obviously, at functions that I do, and I get on really well with them, and then I sort of follow them and look at their work, and some of the stuff's amazing that people can come up with now. So I'll just for fun. I'd love to even. I've always thought I should do that. I should just do a day in the life of just around my house or something. So maybe, yeah.
Or even
maybe I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. There, I've said it. I'm going to do it.
It's funny you say a day in the life of. That's actually exactly what our video challenge is. It's like a day in the life of, lockdown sort of thing. And that could be anything. I mean, you could make a time lapse. You could script something out. There's all sorts of different possibilities of making something. It could be a day in the life of not necessarily you. It could be, your coffee maker.
Ooh, no, in the amount of food that gets consumed in this house at the moment, we could just have like a whole edit of me stuffing my face with my kids.
Time lapse of the interior of the fridge.
I make.
Yeah, that's it. So I think the possibilities are endless, and like I said, it's like an observation. I would say is that my observation is just simply that I see or speak to a lot of stills photographers who haven't really considered the video capabilities of their.
I don't even know where to begin, but I'll YouTube it or I'll ask Nick.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So again, every Tuesday, 2 p.m. You find it on Facebook. We'll publish the Zoom meeting ID on Facebook every week, and then we'll meet up and we can chat about all these things. So if anybody who's listening to this podcast is interested in joining us on Zoom on a Wednesday at 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, now that I know what that is, that's the time over here in the UK, then you're more than welcome to do that. Just go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/CameraShakePodcast, and check out the latest post relating to the camera or photo and video chat, I should say, and you'll be able to join us there. So we've come to the end of today's Camera Shake podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Major thanks to our guest on today's show, Debbie Ram from Debbie Ram Photography. It was really fascinating to listen to your story, and I wish you the best of luck in your endeavors, all photographic and otherwise. And I'm sure we'll be chatting in no time.
Thank you. You guys too. Like I really love this podcast. I hope it's really successful for you guys because it's brilliant. It's so well put together, and you're both deserving guys. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
Excellent. So if you like to follow Debbie's photography on Facebook, the link to her Facebook profile will be in the show notes of this podcast, and we'll also put a link on Facebook, of course. But without further ado, that's it for this week, folks. You've been listening to the Camera Shake podcast with me, Kersten Lutz, and Nick Kirby. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe to the Camera Shake podcast over on YouTube, or head over and drop us a like on Facebook. We'll totally appreciate that as well. So until we meet again every Thursday, from all of us here, the Camera Shake podcast, have a good week. Until next time.